Hey guys, Lee here with a new moon in Taurus reading. I know I'm a little bit earlier in the daytime than some of you normally get to watch these videos, but this is the only time of day I'm going to be able to do the video. Hence, try to save it and then just watch it later if you're not able to watch it now. And first, before we get into the new moon in Taurus reading, just a few little bits of admin, which are that number one, I'm running my new or my next, not final, but final for a while, moon cycles course starting June 13th. The next group of people getting into the course will start on the new moon in Gemini on June 13th. That class lasts for a month and there are 8 modules in it. It's basically a journey by which we start out by looking at your moon by sign and house and aspect, and discovering more about your moon and all of the many, many meanings that your moon has for you. And then we find different ways to check out every new moon or full moon and then decode them for yourselves. So I give you so many freebies in this course. There is a 2018 moon calendar, and whenever I do the 2019, I'll probably just give it to you just because I'm like that. There is a course module on void of course moons, if you've ever heard about that and want to know more about it. There's super cool bonus material that people usually love, and there's a 30-page PDF that helps explain the houses, planets, and signs in astrology, which some people have found super, super useful. So if you are, oh, hi, Maria. If you are new to astrology, or even if you're learning astrology and you feel like you want to learn more, this is the course for you. And in fact, when I take this course offline and then kind of tweak it and compress it, to be honest, lean it out a little bit, I'll be taking some of the information out, because I found that for people that just want to learn about their moon and how to work with the new and the full moons, it's a lot of information. But on the other hand, if you are super excited and keen to learn way more about astrology, get ready. This is a good course for you. So there's only about 15, or I think there's 17 spaces in this course. So take a look. There's a link here in the bio, and you can check out and see if you think this is going to be right for you. If it is, I hope to see you there, because it's something I love doing, sharing this information with other people. So getting back to the new moon in Taurus. I know you guys are going to be surprised by this, but this is just a good new moon. And I know it's usually the case that I'm like, but, and I've always got a number of caveats about, what to watch out for, or why it's sticky, or why there's some punchy moments, common words that Lee Coleman is always using. This one's just kind of good. First of all, the moon is super happy in Taurus. It is its sign of what we call exaltation in astrology. It's very, very happy here. So that's one thing. Number two, there are no adverse aspects to the moon. There's no crappy, weird stuff happening to the sun or the moon at this point. It's just a fresh new beginning. Number three, in fact, there are good aspects. I'll get to that in a second. But number three, this is kind of like a new base or slate from which Uranus and Taurus is going to carry us forward. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in this video, because Uranus and Taurus is a big change. Uranus only changes signs about once every 7 years. Hey, friends. Hey, Matthew. So these are all big changes, all big shifts. And I'm like thinking that all my friends here in North America that are watching, y'all supposed to be at work, but I'm happy you're here with me right now. Okay, so let's get into it. New moon in Taurus. What's Taurus about? You guys know a couple weekends ago, I did a pretty thorough shakedown of Scorpio. You can click back on the page on Facebook or on YouTube if you want to check that out. Let's do the same thing for my friends for Taurus. The fact is, there's not a lot of shakedown to do on Taurus, because it's a sign that, if anything, people just don't understand or don't give a lot of credit to, rather than having a ton of negative opinions about. Taurus, to me, is the nature of wisdom. Always. The sign preceding it is Aries. And Aries is very, very fast moving. It has a huge amount of speed. It's a cardinal fire sign. It's like a spark, or like the pressure and the force of flint that creates a spark, and wham, you get a fire. Taurus is a real shift to something different after Aries. Taurus is a fixed sign. It's stable. It's dependable. And it's an earth sign. So when you think about fixed earth, you can think about a hillside or a mountain, something that is an immovable force, something that's really solid. Taurians, as such, are usually the kind of people that you can absolutely depend on. Sometimes to their detriment, because quite often Tauruses in a family or in a family group or in a workplace end up taking a lot of load on and a lot of work on and a lot of extra pressure because they can withstand it, because they're quite solid, grounded people. Grounded is always a key word for the earth signs. But Taurus, if anything, has such a different pace than Aries. It's a real slow down and a shift. And it is the wisdom that everything is unfolding exactly as it should at the pace that it should, which I think is probably a big part of this new moon. And I hate saying that because I'm an Aries and I like everything to move really fast. But Taurus is not about that. Nature unfolds as it when it should, as it when it needs to, and we don't have to push nature along. Nobody has to tell the trees when to release their buds. No one has to tell the seasons when they need to change. These things just happen on their own. It's a natural part of nature, but of the cycle of the earth and the wisdom of that process, that it just unfolds as it needs to, at the pace it needs to. You can't rush it. It needs to happen very organically. So Taurus is not just the wisdom of nature, it's organic wisdom, however that sits with you or however you relate to that. And I also always think that Taurus is it's part or a big part of the zodiac that reflects the wisdom of the body and how the body connects to nature and how both the body and nature have these unfolding systems, that things are changing, things are shifting, things are moving, and that we need to move with these things in their own pace, and that we need to be driven or follow those natural impulses, not what this is saying. That's what Taurus is about. It's a really beautiful sign. I'm probably guilty of saying that every sign is a really beautiful sign, but I think every sign does have its own wisdom, its own special beauty. And this is what Taurus is about. So new moon in Taurus, and the most important part about this new moon in Taurus is that it's coming right on the heels of Uranus entering Taurus. Uranus is officially, as of this video, entered Taurus. It's been in Aries since about 2010, 2011, and now it will be in Taurus for the next 7 years. So what to expect in the part of your chart ruled by Taurus? Change, turbulence. If it's happening in your first house, change in yourself, change in your body, change in your appearance. The fourth house, your home. I call that the couch surfing transit. The seventh house, relationships and partners. You're going to be challenged. There's going to be breakthroughs and breakdowns in marriages and committed partnerships with business partners. The 10th house, I call this hot desking as the fourth house is couch surfing. And Maria, the 8th house. So whatever lies beneath, whatever you've got as psychic material that's kind of sitting below the layers of pretty. So the layers of pretty are the social stuff that we put out there to say, oh, I'm fine, I'm good. Or I went through some trauma and something happened, I'm okay, I'm dealing with it. When that's partially true, but 20 layers below that, there's a place within us that we're really not fine. We're really not okay. And Uranus is going to turn that step up. Camilla's asking about the 9th. So the 9th is potentially really exciting because it can open you up to a new psychic reality, a new spiritual reality. It can open up doors and horizons when it comes to foreign places, people, academia, religious pursuits, spiritual pursuits, anything kind of higher and greater kind of looks out. What we need to watch out for when Uranus does that transit is frying the psychic capacities, like too much too soon. Because sometimes Uranus transits feel like plugging, and this is across the board for anybody, Uranus transits feel like plugging, a 20-watt bulb into a 60-watt source. Too much power. So just be really careful about 9th house Uranus transits, because that is something that can, we open up these psychic sensibilities or whatever it is, and it just, boom, it can be too much. 2nd house, need to find new ways to make money justice, or think about money or talents or skill or self-esteem. you could, anybody that's watching this, think about Uranus is an awakener. Uranus definitely connects to technology and innovation of any kind. So let's say you've got it going through the second house, as Just Justice does. You might want to think about, how can I digitally find ways to make money? Can I crowdsource what I'm doing? Can I use things like Patreon or Kickstarter? Can I start asking for donations via my blog? I don't know what you do, Jess. So, but something like that. The other part of second house is yes, money, but also skills and talent. And I always think about self-esteem, like that ultimate well of self-worth. And by developing skills and talents, we may get a new sense of self-worth. Overall, all these rides are pretty bumpy though. So whatever I'm saying, take it with a grain of salt. Catherine, hello, Catherine. 12th house. I don't need to tell you, because you are a very, very smart person. You know that the 12th house is tricky. It can be retreat, isolation, and hidden enemies. But the ultimate hidden enemy is not something outside of us, it's within us. In ancient terms, it was a hidden enemy. It was the idea that there was somebody, ye enemy in the bushes, that was crafting against us. But I think in many modern contexts, it's about the inner enemy, the patterns of self-undoing. That can include things like addictions, or I've known some people to go through transits where they approach things like self-harming or really negative patterns of harm to the self, whether that happens in the body or in the psyche, I think is relevant. They're both equally important to get in touch with. Super positive side of a 12th house Uranus transit is getting awakened to that material and having vision of it, because once you bring the light and the vision of Uranus to that house, which is normally quite dark and hidden and a bit creepy, it illuminates the field. You can see that stuff. And when you bring light to that very dark space of the chart, it becomes hard for that stuff to bury itself further and to hide away from you. Sarah, any word in the 6th house, please? So for me, Sarah Ryan, if you've got a Taurus ascendant, that means that Taurus will go through your 1st house, not your 6th. I guess you could be asking about the 6th house for another person or another friend. Definitely, if I think about Taurus going through the 1st house, or excuse me, Uranus transiting the 1st house, I think about stuff with the body, and I think about vitality. And I've even had some very recent conversations with clients about this. People that have ended that transit as Uranus went through Aries. But transiting the 1st, it's more about me, myself, and I. Who am I? What am I about? What do people think about me? And how do people perceive me? The 1st, I think, is possibly one of the most freeing transits of Uranus, because it totally upends your sense of self. But usually what Uranus is gunning for is inauthenticity, or trying to free you for something, break patterns, break normal, crappy, stagnant reality, if there's something like that. And I always say that Uranus comes at us in direct response to how far our head is stuck in the sand on something. So if we've gotten pretty intensely, okay, I have so many personal stories that I could share about this, but I'm not going to. Like, we all have parts of our lives that are going really well, and we feel that, we know that. And we have parts of our lives that are not so great. And quite often we know that's not going so great, but we've got so much shit to deal with. And as that thing starts to go off the rails, we have usually a quiet voice that goes, this is no good. And for many reasons, we might just not be able to handle it. We've got other shit to deal with. We've got life, maybe we've got stress at our workplace, or something's not going good in our marriage. One of our kids is not doing so well. And so this other thing is hanging in the background, again, quietly going off the rails while we try to figure out a plan. Uranus comes for that stuff. So if you've got Uranus going through a part of your chart where you've been ignoring your inner narrative, if you've been getting messages that you don't like, that you've been shoving underneath the rug, that's the stuff to watch for. Not watch out for, because I don't want you guys to feel like you got to be afraid of this transit, but just know that light is coming. Uranus's awakening Promethean light is coming straight for that space. So I'm just gonna scroll up. I think I'm missing some comments. Jess, I'm glad you're a musician. I hope that helps you. And thanks. And you too, Maria. I'm all about the pragmatism. I have Mercury and Taurus. I like stuff to be sensible. Fleur, fourth house, recent marriage breakdown. That's a change in your house. It's a change in your foundation. The fourth house is the foundation of the chart. It sits right at the bottom of the chart, literally anchoring the birth chart to earth, to the ground. So when we have things that hit our fourth chart, I think about house, home, childhood, father. Those are the real themes. But it's just the foundation. It's the part of, in the sense that our childhood is the foundation of our life and we grow up from that. That is the fourth house. So you might want to look back at what patterns have I picked up from childhood that need to go. They've been great coping mechanisms from until now. They've helped me deal with life until now, but it's time to, it's kind of time to nip this stuff in the bud. Did I say that right? I'm not sure. But that is the stuff to look at with fourth house. And yes, naturally, I'm sorry to hear about your marriage, but that's fourth house Uranus stuff can break up homes. That's very possible. You might even change house or change residence during that period. Angela, I talked about the ninth house already. You can go back in the video and look at that, but it's also, it's a pretty good time to study astrology, moon cycle course. Caitlin Rory, hello, Caitlin, good friend. Sixth house. So you want to take care of your body during the sixth house. On one hand, the sixth house is service. In the very ancient terminology of astrology, the sixth house was the house of slavery, very charming. And that's why there are two houses about work in the chart. One is the sixth house and one is the 10th. And it makes sense, right? Because the sixth is like drudgery, actually. That would be a really good keyword for the sixth. It's drudgery. It's really unsexy, boring tasks that need doing. That eventually these tiny tasks could add up to good health. Eventually these tiny tasks could add up to progression in your workplace. The sixth is also about pets and colleagues and any subordinates. So if you have people working in your house for you, if you have a team of people working underneath you, watch out for that. That's where disruptions might come. But the sixth is all about health. So I would want to tell anybody with Uranus transiting the sixth to get real about your health. If there's, again, I know I got this voice telling me all the time, this ain't going right. If there's stuff in your health space that you know you need to take care of, wherever you're at, and try and judge yourself with any of these Uranus transits, not where you want to be in 7 years, and not against somebody who's gotten it all figured out, but just where you were a couple days ago. That's as far as you need to take the judgment, right? Uranus will reward any move towards authenticity. It's going to reward any move towards freedom. So those are all things to think about as Uranus transits different parts of your chart. So the new moon in Taurus is very much the first hits of Uranus and Taurus. It is about introducing this new theme into our lives. Just moments after the new moon in Taurus, Uranus entered Taurus. It is in Taurus right now as we speak and have this conversation. And I think there's a real potential, one, for transformation in the next 2 weeks. Okay, caveat, disclaimer, I usually talk shit about people that say things like this in moon reports. So I want to be real. I'm being serious about this. The new moon and the moon and the sun in Taurus, the new moon in Taurus, is trine to Pluto, which is all about overhaul, molecular, cellular level of change, transformation, upheaval, breaking things down so they can become renewed. This is a very Plutonian process. So there's a real energy and shift that's possible. And to help that and to aid it, there's two other things happening, one of which is going to be easier than the other, depending on what your chart looks like. So Mars in Capricorn is also just about to go over into Aquarius. He is giving really positive, helpful rays to the new moon. So there's drive, there's energy, there's ambition, there's, there's kind of a get up and go energy that's there, which is really helpful. On the other hand, the stickier part is that Mars and Uranus are going to have a series of squares over the next couple months. Part of this is because Uranus is going to get into Aries. Stop. I think this happens. Let me look at my notes. August 7th. So by August 7th, Uranus is going to stop at about 2 degrees, 2.5 degrees of Taurus, stop in retrograde. And Mars itself is going to retrograde this summer. I'm going to be writing about that for astrology.com, so you'll have some more information about that in the coming weeks. But that will happen June 26th to August 27th. So basically, because of both of these two retrogrades, Mars and Aquarius are going to come into a square 3 times. The first one is May 16th, tomorrow. The next one is August 2nd, and the last one will be September 19th. So you want to look at the parts of your chart that have Aquarius and Taurus. You want to look at the relationship between those two parts of the chart. And you want to understand or think about what kind of drive to change or innovate can you bring to those areas of the chart. Because when Mars squares Uranus, it's like Mars is the drive and the energy, and Uranus is like rocket fuel. Or it's like a car with rocket fuel. It's going to go faster than normal, harder than normal, more aggressive than normal. It's got a lot of drive and ambition and energy, and the drive is for something different, to change, to break out, to individuate, and to find a way to get to freedom, to kind of break out of a pattern, to just, it really feels quite urgent when Mars squares Uranus. So if you've been feeling a bit itchy these days, because we're in the build up to this Mars-Uranus square, this is what it's about. Mars and Uranus are kind of like, oh God, I got to get out of here. I got to do something. I got to make a change. It's really intense and urgent. So look at the parts of your chart ruled by Aquarius and Taurus. Think about what you've got going on in those areas. Think about what changes you want to make, and pay attention to that. But essentially, really, I think the new moon in Taurus is just a call into, or an initiation into, Uranus and Taurus and what's going to be unfolding in the chart. So looking back, seeing if there's any other questions. Teresa, my daughter is a Taurus. Her and her dad have not had the best relationship. Definitely anybody with a sun in Taurus, it might not happen immediately. It's going to happen if you were born in the earlier part of Taurus. So more like April 20th, 21st birthdays to the first 9-10 days of Taurus. Big changes coming in the next year. And as somebody that just had Uranus moving over my Aries, late degrees Aries sun, big changes, my friends. So Teresa, yeah, your daughter is probably up for big change. Now, what that can be, we can't say. But Taurus is always trying to move people towards freedom. So in terms of that, there's a relationship with the father that needs to work or not work. It's going to depend on what freedom looks like to her, and in the context of that working or not. Sun is in Taurus, moon is in Taurus, 4th house, please. KDB, I talked about that a little bit earlier in the video, so you can look back at that. Angela, hi, thanks for coming to my Facebook Live. Judith, currently squaring my poor Mercury in Scorpio and Mars in Libra, but I'm laying low and keeping my eyes open like a crocodile in the marsh. That's a Mercury in Scorpio shit, ain't it? Well done, Judith. I feel you on that, because one thing to say is that people born around 1983, 1984, as Uranus enters Taurus, it is going to oppose your natal Pluto. That's a big change, transformation moment. So there's some of that stuff to watch out for too. But essentially, guys, I feel like this is a really nice new moon. I just hope that, whatever comes up now in the next 4 or 5 days, take that as somewhat of a sign about what Uranus and Taurus is going to be about for you. Now, I am kind of calling this first bit of Uranus and Taurus like coming soon to a theater near you, because what it feels like is that Uranus enters Taurus today, has entered, is now in Taurus. Creepily, on the day of the US midterm elections, November 6th, 2018, it's going to have moved back into Aries. And then it won't move back into Taurus again until March 6, 2019. So this is, again, kind of like a preview period where we're getting our first taste of Uranus and Taurus. So just keep your eyes peeled, and especially now with the new moon in Taurus, to see what that is about for you. Another final thought before I go offline and leave you guys. The natural ruler of this lunation, this new moon, is Venus. And Venus is doing something kind of crazy, which we call in astrology out of bounds. So there's a normal strip in the sky where we see constellations and we see planets moving. And sometimes planets move beyond those parameters. And when they do that, we call it being out of bounds. And it is like a naughty little player that's normally in a squad playing by the rules, goes off-piste or offside and does its own thing and is not playing by the rules. Venus is out of bounds, or has been out of bounds for a little bit, since 5th May, and it'll be out of bounds until 7th of June. So just A, watch your wallet. B, I'm going to double down on this. Watch your goddamn wallet, because you're probably going to spend too much money during this period. And Venus out of bounds is slightly like a Venus retrograde, and that you look back and go, what was I thinking? What was that? So watch out for that. Number 2, Venus quite obviously rules interpersonal relationships, romance, sex, and lovers. Lovers, a la Sex in the City. I don't know what season it would have been. Watch out for that. So just know when you are swiping left and right as we go into the season of May to September. Is it May to September or May, December relationships? That you could very well swipe away on something that is no, not for you. So Venus is out of bounds. It's out of bounds from 5th May to 7th June. It's something that I've been studying off and on for a couple of years, and I've continued to see the value of. So just keep this in mind. While Venus is out of bounds, just keep away from fineries and luxuries and art, and in terms of spending money on it, or any big luxury purchases, fineries, and love and romance can have a tendency to kind of go out of bounds. It's that kind of thing where you might turn around and be like, I can't believe I went on a date with that person. So, or worse. So keep that in mind. And I think that's going to be it from me, my friends. Feel free to keep on talking about Uranus and Taurus in the comments. If you're coming in late to this this live video, check out the first part of the video, because there's quite a lot that we talked about Uranus going through different parts of the natal chart. So your question might have already been answered. And just one final plug that my Moon Cycles course will be going for the last time for some time on June 13th, the next new moon. I would love to have you join me. So check it out. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope to see you guys soon. Thanks. See you.